Humanity's first contact. Captain Lena Sorensen took a deep breath as she stepped onto the bridge of the UES Frontier. The sleek vessel represented the pinnacle of human spaceflight, a fusion-powered explorer designed to chart the furthest reaches of known space. Little did Sorensen and her crew suspect they were about to make history in a very different way. "Captain on deck," announced First Officer Mikhail Petrov. The bridge crew snapped to attention. "At ease," said Sorensen. "Status report." "All systems normal," replied Petrov. "Ready to get underway on your command." Sorensen nodded. "Let's take her out then. Helm, lay in a course for." An urgent tone from the comm station interrupted her. "Captain, we're being hailed on an emergency frequency. You need to see this." Sorensen strode over, frowning. Long-range communication was still a rarity. On screen, the forward viewport filled with the image of an alien creature unlike anything Sorensen had ever seen. Humanoid in general form, it had pale blue skin, an elongated cranium, and large black eyes that sent an involuntary chill down her spine. When it spoke, it addressed her in perfect, unaccented English. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Supreme Overseer Xyloth of the Zorgan Imperium. Your species has advanced far enough to warrant our attention, and to necessitate your immediate capitulation if you wish to survive." Sorensen's mind raced as a cold dread settled over the bridge. First contact with an alien intelligence should have been a momentous, joyous occasion. Instead, Earth and all of humanity had just been handed an ultimatum, seemingly out of nowhere. She fought to keep her voice level as she replied. "Overseer Xyloth, I'm Captain Sorensen of the United Earth Ship Frontier. I'm afraid I have no authority to discuss the submission of my entire species. Please allow me to relay your message to my superiors so that a proper dialogue can begin." The alien's expression didn't flicker. "You have one rotation of your planet to comply. Do not test our patience or our power. We will be waiting." The screen went dark. Sorensen sagged into the command chair, mind reeling. They had hoped to find intelligence among the stars. Now that they had, the survival of humanity itself was in question. She keyed the ship-wide comm. "Send an emergency burst transmission to Earth Command, highest priority. Inform them we have made contact with a potentially hostile advanced intelligence." She paused, considering her next move carefully. Then set a course for home, best possible speed. As the frontier came about, a bright lance of energy sizzled past the bow viewports. A Zorgan warship shimmered into view, bristling with weapons. Sorensen's eyes widened. Apparently, their new adversaries possessed cloaking technology far beyond anything Earth had. "I thought I made our position clear, Captain," came Xyloth's icy voice over the comm. "You will await our emissaries here. Any attempt to flee or summon reinforcements will be harshly punished." The implications crashed over Sorensen like a freezing wave. The Frontier was the most sophisticated ship humanity had ever built, and it was completely outclassed by a single alien escort craft. Earth would need time to mount any meaningful defense. Time she would have to find a way to buy. "Of course, Overseer," she replied calmly, mind racing ahead. "We will gladly wait to receive your delegation." She nodded to Petrov, who cut the audio feed. "Mikhail, they can't know what we're planning until it's too late. Work with engineering to mask our power signature. Make it look like we've powered down main systems in compliance." Petrov nodded grimly. "Aye, Captain." "And the transmission?" "I have a few ideas," Sorensen replied, a glimmer of hope kindling in her chest. "We can't beat them, yet, but we may be able to buy Earth the time it needs." With a flicker of pseudo-motion, the massive Zorgan ship moved to loom over the much smaller frontier, a pointed reminder of the precariousness of their position. Sorensen thought of the billions of lives hanging in the balance, blissfully unaware of the threat that had just made itself known. She would find a way to protect them, even if it cost her everything. Earth needed a miracle. She and her crew would have to find a way to be that miracle, starting right here and now. For the future of the human race, Failure was not an option. The fate of humanity would be decided in the next few hours, and it all rested on the shoulders of one small ship and crew, facing impossible odds at the edge of known space. Looking ahead to an uncertain future, Captain Sorensen began to formulate a desperate plan. Mobilizing Earth's defenses. The view screen in the UES Frontiers conference room displayed the grim faces of Earth's leaders as Captain Sorensen finished her report. The implications of the Zorgan ultimatum hung heavy in the air. "It's clear we're dealing with a technologically superior adversary," said Admiral Graves, her expression grave. "We'll have to work quickly to mount a defense." "Our cloaking technology is primitive compared to theirs," Sorensen said, "but we may be able to use it to buy time. If we can convince them we're complying while we mobilize." General Rykov nodded. "It's a start. We'll begin secretly recalling all military personnel and ramping up arms production back home. But we'll need more than numbers to stand against the Zorgans." "Agreed," said Dr. Amelia Singh, Earth's foremost xenotechnology expert. "Captain Sorensen, you said the Zorgans are sending a delegation to the frontier." "Within the hour," Sorensen confirmed. Dr. Singh leaned forward. "Then we have an opportunity. I propose a covert mission to infiltrate their ship and gather intel on their capabilities. It's risky, but it could give us a chance to level the playing field." Admiral Graves' jaw tightened. "You're talking about espionage, Doctor. That's an act of war." "With respect, Admiral, we're already at war. The Zorgans have made their intentions clear. We need every advantage we can get." Sorensen spoke up. "My crew can handle it. We'll install hidden scanning tech to analyze their systems. With luck, we can figure out what makes their ships tick." The leaders exchanged glances, the weight of the decision heavy upon them. Finally, Admiral Graves nodded. "Do it, but understand, if you're caught, we'll have to disavow all knowledge. You'll be on your own." "Understood, Admiral." Sorensen set her jaw. "We won't let you down." The meeting concluded, and a flurry of activity erupted across Earth. Factories roared to life, churning out weapons and ships at a frenzied pace. Soldiers trained relentlessly, preparing for the battles to come. In hidden labs, scientists pored over scraps of alien technology, trying to unlock their secrets. All the while, the population remained unaware, lest mass panic cripple the war effort. So much depended on secrecy and on the dangerous mission about to unfold on the fringes of space. Aboard the Frontier, Sorensen briefed her plan to a select team: Petrov, Singh, and a handful of the ship's most skilled operatives. They would pose as a meager diplomatic party, then split up to plant the hidden scanners throughout the Zorgan vessel. It was a high-stakes gambit, but time was a luxury they didn't have. As the Zorgan shuttle approached, Sorensen felt the weight of her duty pressing down on her. The lives of billions rested on this mission, on her ability to outwit a species centuries ahead of her own. "Ready, Captain?" Petrov asked softly from beside her. Sorensen nodded, squaring her shoulders. "As I'll ever be." "For Earth." "For Earth," her crew echoed. The airlock hissed open, and the Zorgan delegation strode aboard, a towering cadre of black-eyed soldiers and inscrutable efficients. Sorensen stepped forward to greet them, a thin smile masking the tension thrumming through her. The fate of humanity hung by a thread. With a steadying breath, she moved to meet it head-on, acutely aware that the next few hours might decide the future of her species, or lack thereof. Back on Earth, a grim determination had seized hold. The world's brightest minds and strongest warriors united with a single purpose: to find a way to save their people from the most dire threat they had ever faced. Failure was unthinkable. They would fight with everything they had, and more. For their survival, for their children, for the future. Earth was mobilizing. And somewhere in the unforgiving dark of space, the crew of the Frontier prepared to light the spark of resistance or perish in the attempt. The battle for humanity's tomorrow had begun. The Zorgan ultimatum. Captain Sorensen felt the weight of the concealed scanner pressing against her ribs as she led the Zorgan delegation through the frontier's austere corridors. Beside her, Supreme Overseer Xyloth glided with an air of unconcealed disdain, flanked by a quartet of hulking bodyguards. "Your vessel is primitive," Xyloth remarked, black eyes roving over the humble human craftsmanship. "As is your species. You would do well to accept the inevitable and submit to our rule." Sorensen forced a diplomatic smile. "We are a young race, it's true. But we have much to offer in knowledge and culture. Surely there is a path to coexistence between our kinds." Xyloth's lipless mouth twitched. "Coexistence implies equality. There can be none between the Zorgan Imperium and lesser beings. You will serve, or you will be swept aside." A chill raced down Sorensen's spine, but she kept her voice level. "Of course, Overseer. Forgive my impertinence." As she spoke, Petrov and Singh peeled away with their own Zorgan escorts, each carrying a hidden scanner to place in a critical system junction. The frontier's future, and Earth's, depended on them now. Sorensen led Xyloth to the observation deck, playing for time. Through the viewport, the Zorgan warship loomed like a crouching predator, its weapon arrays glinting with promise of annihilation. "Impressive," she said aloud. "Your technology is far beyond ours." "Indeed," Xyloth said. "And your paltry defenses would crumble before but a fraction of our might. You have glimpsed but a whisper of our power." The Overseer fixed Sorensen with a penetrating stare. "I grow weary of this mummer's farce. I will have your answer now. Will you submit to the Imperium and be spared, or will you doom your species to destruction?" Sorensen's heart pounded, but she kept her face a mask of calm. She had to keep the Overseer talking, buy her crew the time they needed. "I understand the choice you present," she said carefully, "but such a decision cannot be made lightly. Surely we can negotiate terms." Xyloth's eyes flashed with anger. "There are no terms, Captain. Only submission or annihilation. You have until the end of this solar cycle to comply. Fail, and we will reduce your cities to ash and your people to slaves. Those who survive the purge." Sorensen fought down a surge of fear and revulsion. The ultimatum had been given, the gauntlet thrown down. On the frontier's bridge, Petrov and Singh labored feverishly at their stations, the alien scanner data scrolling across their screens. They had succeeded in their mission, but the implications of what they'd learned chilled them to the bone. The Zorgan ships weren't just advanced. They were nightmarishly powerful, with weaponry that could cleave continents and shields that could weather stellar blasts. Earth's mightiest vessels would be less than gnats before them. Even with the new intel, the technological gap seemed hopelessly insurmountable. "We have to get this data back to Earth Command right away," Singh whispered urgently. "It may be the only chance we have." Petrov nodded grimly. "Let's just hope the captain can keep them busy long enough for us to transmit." On the observation deck, Sorensen faced down Xyloth with a confidence she didn't feel, keenly aware of the chrono ticking away the final hours of Earth's reprieve. "I will relay your message to my superiors promptly," she said. "In the meantime, in the spirit of cooperation, perhaps you would share more about the glories of your Imperium." And so the desperate dance continued, a captain stalling for time as a world readied for war. And the shadow of apocalyptic threat loomed large across the stars. The Zorgans had made their demands. The deadline was set, and on 100 different fronts, from the gleaming halls of power to the gritty engine rooms of a lonely starship, humanity prepared to fight for its very right to exist. The countdown to doomsday had begun, and the children of Earth would need every ounce of ingenuity and courage to face the storm to come. For the sake of all they held dear, they could not fail. The battle begins. Alarms blared through the halls of the UES frontier as Captain Sorensen raced to the bridge, heart pounding in her chest. The Zorgan deadline had passed, and Earth's reply had been bold and unwavering. Humanity would not submit. They would fight. And now, it seemed, the Zorgans were making good on their terrible promise. "Report," Sorensen barked as she strode onto the bridge, the view screen already flickering with telemetry from Earth's orbital defenses. Multiple Zorgan warships just dropped out of FTL on the edges of the system, Petrov replied tensely. They're not responding to hails. Weapons hot. Sorensen's blood ran cold. So it began. Battle stations, she ordered, sinking into the command chair. Bring the fleet to full alert, and patch me through to Earth Command. The bridge descended into controlled chaos as the crew rushed to action. On the view screen, Earth's ragtag fleet moved to intercept the invaders, their hulls bristling with the newest weapons Earth's brightest minds had been able to devise. It still wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. Admiral Graves' haggard face filled the screen, the command center behind her a hive of frantic activity. Captain Sorensen, she said grimly. It appears the Zorgans have tired of waiting. They're cutting through our outer defenses like tissue paper. Understood, Admiral. Sorensen gripped the arms of her chair. We're on our way back now. We'll hit them from behind. Try to draw some of their fire. Negative, Captain. Graves shook her head. I have a different mission for you. Dr. Singh's team has been analyzing the data you sent back on Zorgan technology. They believe they found a weakness in their shield harmonics, a vulnerability we can exploit. But we need more time to develop a countermeasure. Sorensen leaned forward. What are you saying, Admiral? I'm saying we need you to buy us that time. The Frontier is our fastest ship, and you have the most experience with the Zorgans. I need you to lead them away from Earth. Keep them occupied while we work on a way to even the odds. Sorensen swallowed hard. It was a suicide mission, and they both knew it. But what choice did they have? Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down. Graves nodded, something like respect, and sorrow flickering in her eyes. Godspeed, Captain. Earth is counting on you. The screen went dark, and Sorensen turned to her crew. Seeing her own determination reflected in their faces, they knew what was being asked of them, and they were ready. You heard the Admiral, she said. Let's go pick a fight. The Frontier leaped to warp, racing towards the oncoming Zorgan fleet. In the distance, Earth's defenders fought valiantly, their weapons splashing harmlessly off the invaders' shields even as their own hulls buckled and burned under the onslaught. But they fought on, each ship and soul a bulwark against the darkness. They were hopelessly outmatched. But they were human, stubborn, brave, and utterly unbowed. They would make the Zorgans bleed for every inch of space. The Frontier dropped out of warp with all guns blazing, lancing into the Zorgan rear guard. The massive warships wheeled to face them, their batteries thundering. On the bridge, consoles exploded and fires raged. But Sorensen held her course, weaving through the enemy lines, stinging and harrying, drawing more and more ships away from the main battle. Their flagship is hailing us, Petrov reported, shouting over the din. It's Xylov. Sorensen bared her teeth in a feral grin. Put him through. The Overseer's furious visage filled the screen. Flee, Captain, he hissed. Flee, and your death will be quick. Stand and fight, and you will suffer for this insolence. Sorensen stared him down, unflinching even as another volley rocked the ship. Come and get us, she said, and cut the channel. The Frontier plunged onward into the teeth of the enemy, battered but unbroken. They would hold the line. They would buy the time. They would not fail. Light years away, in hidden labs and fevered minds, Earth's last hope began to take shape, born from blood and desperation, and sheer, indomitable human will. The battle had been joined, and though the night was darkest before the dawn, the children of Earth would not go gently. They would rage, turning the tide. In the bowels of a secret Earth Command research facility, Dr. Amelia Singh worked feverishly, her team a hive of activity around her. On a dozen screens, schematics and simulations flashed by, the fruits of their desperate labor. A weapon, a chance, a hope. Singh's eyes burned with exhaustion, but she refused to yield to it. Not now. Not with so much at stake. The data from the frontier had given them the key, a fatal flaw in the Zorgan shielding. Now it was up to her to forge that key into a blade that could cut the enemy down. And she had to do it fast, because on the front lines, Earth's defenders were being hammered. The frontier was a ghost on the sensors, lost amid the chaos of battle. And with every passing minute, the Zorgans pushed closer to the homeworld. "Doctor," one of her assistants called out, voice bright with excitement and relief. "I think we've got it." Singh rushed over, heart pounding. On the screen, a simulation played out, a new Earth weapon punching through Zorgan defenses like they were paper, the mighty warships faltering and failing. It was risky, untested, but it was all they had. "Get the design to command," Singh ordered. "Now, we don't have a second to waste." As the data stringed out, Singh turned her gaze to the displays showing the raging battle above. Somewhere out there, Captain Sorensen and her crew were still fighting, still holding the line. They had given everything. Now it was time to make that sacrifice count. In the skies over Earth, the tide of battle seemed to have turned, for the worst. The planetary defense grid was in ruins, the remnants of Earth's fleet scattered and burning. The Zorgan warships advanced unopposed, their weapons charging for the final, fateful bombardment. On the bridge of the crippled frontier, Captain Sorensen watched the doom descend with grim resolve. They had fought to the last, but it hadn't been enough. The ship was a wreck, her crew decimated. The end was coming. But even as the Zorgan flagship loomed above them, its vast gun ports glowing with apocalyptic light, a new hope dawned. "Captain," Petrov called out, voice hoarse with pain and wonder. New contacts appearing on the edge of the system. It's the rest of the fleet." Sorensen stared in disbelief as fresh Earth ships poured from the jump points, their hulls gleaming with strange new weaponry. They fell upon the Zorgan rear like avenging angels, lances of brilliant energy shredding through the enemy shields like they weren't even there. The Zorgans reeled, caught off guard. Their formation fractured as they scrambled to reorient to this new threat. And in that moment of confusion, the battered remnants of Earth's defenders pressed the attack. It was a sight beyond belief, the invincible Zorgan ships burning and breaking. The turn of the battle, sudden and spectacular. The tide of war shifting in an instant. On the frontier's view screen, a hail pierced the stunned silence. Admiral Graves, her face alight with fierce joy. "Looks like you could use a hand, Captain," she said. "Dr. Singh sends her regards." Sorensen felt a wild laugh bubbling up in her chest. They had done it. Against all odds, against all hope, they had found a way. "What are your orders, Admiral?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Graves grinned fiercely. "Finish this." And with a ragged cheer from her battered crew, the frontier plunged back into the fray, the spearhead of a resurgent human fleet. They fell upon the reeling Zorgans like wolves on wounded prey, the new weapons tearing through their once impenetrable defenses. The battle still raged. The enemy was still lethal. But now, at least, the odds were even. Now, at least, Earth had a fighting chance. Far below, on the scared surface of the homeworld, humanity looked to the skies with rekindled hope. The night was not over, but there was a light on the horizon. They had dared to defy. They had dared to stand. And now, with the tide turning and their champions blazing across the firmament, they dared to believe that dawn might come again. Victory or annihilation. Supreme Overseer Zodloth seethed with fury as he watched his mighty armada crumble before the resurgent Earther assault. It was impossible. It was intolerable. These primitives, these lessers, daring to defy the might of the Zorgan Imperium. It could not stand. He would not allow it. "All ships, converge on the human homeworld," he commanded, his voice cold and laden with menace. "Ignore the gnats at our flanks. Try for the planet, and burn it to cinders." The Zorgan fleet, though battered and bloodied, obeyed with ruthless efficiency. The bulk of their force disengaged from the raging space battle, forging ahead in a spearhead aimed straight at the heart of Earth, straight at certain victory and humanity's annihilation. On the bridge of the frontier, Captain Sorensen saw the shift in tactics with a surge of dread. The new Earth weapons had leveled the playing field, but the Zorgans still vastly outnumbered the human defenders. If they made it through, "Admiral, the enemy is making a push for Earth," she reported across the fleet comm, her voice tight with urgency. "We can't let them reach the surface." Admiral Graves' face was grim. "Agreed. All ships, intercept the Zorgan advance. Buy the planetary defenses as much time as you can." It was a desperate plan, but these were desperate times. The ragged Earth fleet hurled itself into the path of the oncoming juggernaut, guns blazing, engines straining. They were the final line, the last hope. They would hold that line or die trying. The two forces clashed like titans, the void alight with the fire of their struggle. The Earth ships fought with reckless valor, weaving and dodging amidst the enemy barrage, dealing devastation of their own. The new weapons proved their worth, Zorgan ships splitting and shattering under their onslaught. But it wasn't enough. The Zorgans pressed onward, shouldering past the desperate human blockade through sheer weight of numbers. Their warships, their vast troop transports, driving inexorably towards the blue marble of Earth below. Towards the end of all things, on the frontier's shattered bridge, Sorensen shared a look of grim resolve with what remained of her crew. They all knew what had to be done, what price remained to be paid. Petrov set a collision course with the lead Zorgan dreadnought. "Overload the engines." The first officer nodded solemnly. "Aye, Captain. It's been an honor." Sorensen swallowed past the lump in her throat. The honor was mine. The frontier, blazing with the fires of its own destruction, hurled itself at the enemy flagship with the last of its strength. A spear aimed at the heart of the beast. A sacrificial charge, the final act of defiance in the face of doom. But even as the frontier bore down upon its fate, the void lit up with a sight beyond all imagining. Slip-space portals yawning open, reinforcements pouring through. But not Zorgan reinforcements. Human. Ship after ship, blazing with the colors of a dozen Earth nations. Vessels from every corner of the homeworld, every orbit and outpost, rallied to the defense of their cradle. Humanity, united as never before against the specter of extinction. They fell upon the Zorgans like an avenging tide, fresh and fierce, and armed with the new weapons born of human ingenuity and desperation. The enemy reeled, caught between this new onslaught and the savage rearguard action of Earth's battered initial defenders, caught in a vice of human resolve and defiance. And in that moment, as the tide turned and the scales tipped, as the Zorgan armada began to buckle and break under the weight of humanity's wrath, a final confrontation played out in the heart of the chaos. The frontier locked on its suicide run. The Zorgan flagship, looming ahead. Xylov, eyes wide with sudden understanding and fear. "Come on, you bastard," Sorensen growled through gritted teeth. "Come and see how lesser beings die." The frontier struck the dreadnought like the hammer of an angry god. A sun bloomed in the void, a pyre of Zorgan arrogance and human sacrifice. And with that final, terrible blow, the back of the invaders broke. The Zorgan fleet shattered, their will to fight snuffed out in the face of this impossible reversal. They fled, harried by the triumphant Earth ships at every turn. Fled, leaving humanity bloody but unbowed. Victorious. Alive. In the aftermath, as the people of Earth counted their losses and began the long, slow work of rebuilding, they remembered the courage, the sacrifice, the indomitable human spirit that had carried them through this darkest of nights. And on 100 worlds, in 1,000 cities, a name was spoken with reverence and gratitude, a name that had become a rallying cry, a symbol of defiance in the face of annihilation. Sorensen. Earth had stood at the brink, and an unlikely band of heroes had brought it back, had shown the galaxy the mettle of humanity, had proven, beyond all doubt, that the children of Earth would not go quietly, would not be cowed, would not yield, would rage and fight and win.